Hello, welcome to Closing the Distance. My name is Jeff Myers, one of the pastors here at Roswell Presbyterian Church, and I am joined with my longtime friend. It's been a while though since we've talked, Bobby Hulme-Lippert. Bobby, good to see you.
Man, it is great to be here. Great to see you, Jeff.
So you served Claremont Presbyterian Church when I had just came to Atlanta. When did you come to serve Claremont?
That was in 2008. Yep, 2008 to 2013.
Yeah, man. And so in case I don't know if anybody cares, but I'm going to tell them anyway. So we used to do you did young adult ministry, I did young adult ministry. We would partner with our good friend Brian Dunnigan,
Uh-huh.
recently passed. We would do young adult retreats. I remember we would share
Yes.
some awesome times going to St. Simon's, doing great work. So do you have good memories about those times?
Gosh, what an incredible, yeah, the three of our congregations, the young adult ministries went to St. Simon's, and it just I look back in those days. I still have on social media and otherwise some of the best connections I made just in ministry with congregants existed in that wonderful space. A whole group of people just starting to form who they are and what they're about in the world. And so I think the bond just goes super tight. And anyway, fond memories.
Yes. So then in 2013, you went to Richmond,
That's right.
served a congregation in Richmond, Virginia for a number of years, and now you are
Mhm.
in Texas, Georgetown, Texas, and you
Correct.
had a career vocational pivot. What are you doing now?
Well, so yeah, I was serving First Presbyterian in Georgetown, Texas. And I have to say, by the way, you all started closing the distance in early COVID with kind of a devotional, a way to close the distance between the people. I
Yep.
so liked that title when I saw it come through my email because I was on the list. I was like, oh, we're doing that at Georgetown, Texas. So we totally had a closing the distance for about 3 or 4 months.
Oh, that's awesome. Imitation is the highest form of flattery.
That's all I wanted to do was be sure you all know that it had a good effect, and it was very well received. But no, a little over a year ago, after a long process of discernment, the whole story there, I really sensed God nudging me into, quite frankly, into the wilderness, but trusting that my gifts, my voice, were being called out beyond the, I'll say, traditional walls of ministry, still doing ministry, but in a different flavor among people that may not walk through the doors of the church right now or as readily. And it's taken the form of individual and team leadership coaching as well as some keynote speaking.
Wow. What kind of issues or questions are you answering when because in the church, I think you gotta be like, well, there's spiritual, theological, so on and so forth. But like in your role now, how has it changed?
In many ways, I feel the work I'm doing with coaching is as close to genuine discipleship as I've been able to come. Because
Mm.
the pastoral role asks a lot of you in a lot of directions, and a lot of times you're juggling balls, you're keeping the infrastructure, the just the church, the programming, all the pieces together. Coaching allows me to be very focused on the individual and the team, and allows the gift of meaningful questions, compassionate space. It just opens something different. And I find the people I work with are pretty busy leaders who are pretty successful or have known some success, but have, for whatever reason, that mid-career space started to ask questions about what they're doing and if there isn't something more that they're maybe missing. And so it's a lot around purpose and finding a different sense of anchored direction. Howard Thurman, right? What he say? Don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive, because what the world needs are people who've come alive.
Mm.
Across the board, I would say people, they don't use the language at first, but seeking a deeper sense of aliveness, and what they're offering and who they are in this world. So purpose discovery in their season of life is significant. Yeah.
I love it. It's so fascinating. And this kind of leads me to, okay, so you've just published a book called Small Stories About Big Things.
That's right.
And what a great title. What's the book about?
This is, I mean, it's 45 stories, small stories. And if you're a preacher, as you are, or raised in the church, you start reading through these and you're like, gosh, this doesn't read unlike maybe a sermon,
Uh-huh.
but they're not. In fact, someone said, "Are these secular sermons, Bobby?" And I didn't think of them that way, but actually, yeah, they're meant to be translations, for a wider audience of fundamental values, what we call gospel or good news values, things that that really matter about how we're shaped and form this world in ways that bear the image, the light of Christ. But I don't use a lot of that language in the book. Occasionally, there's certainly references to church or Christianity, but mostly it is my attempt at harnessing the power of stories, which I find in our divided, isolated, fractured culture is maybe the singular bridge of connection. It resonates on so many levels below the top layer stuff. And I harness the power of stories to just connect with people on things that matter. And I like the book goes into 45 stories that are just kind of all everyday events that occurred somehow over the last couple of years in my life. So the point being, it's not like we have to reach overly far for some of the deepest wisdom and insight and direction we want. It's all right there. And so it's the beauty of discovering that in the stories around us.
Okay.
I could say more, but that's broad brush strokes.
Yeah. So, okay, like give me, okay, I would ask for your favorite story, but I just feel like you don't want to give away your favorite story. You want to read the book to get that. What was your third favorite story that you told in the book?
That's a good one. I remember there was a day I was making a visit to a congregant at like 5 a.m. before their surgery, right? And I'm in the dark driving down the street and there's hardly any lights. And I've got my smoothie that I blended that morning, that I blended the night before so that I could get up extra early and have like a blueberry banana smoothie on the way there. And I don't usually get up at 4:30. And so I set my alarm to the Hamilton song Helpless, because I needed some extra pep. If you know that song, to kind of wake me. Okay, Helpless wakes me up. I get my blueberry banana smoothie. I'm in the dark, driving in the car, and still waking up. But thank you, Helpless. Thank you, blueberry smoothie. And all of a sudden, a deer cuts out in front of me, half a mile from the hospital. I slam on the brakes. I throw my arm across the smoothie, which is in the passenger seat. Like old school, like how you used to hold a child back when there weren't seat belts. It was before I was even born, but apparently that's how you did it. and apparently you can't see what you're going to swing at in the dark. I missed the smoothie and it just went everywhere. And so I'm pulling up to the hospital. I'm terrified to even look at myself, because I'm going to walk into this hospital and this person with a significant surgery, and I'm just going to be full of blueberry smoothie. And I was fortunate, there was no blueberry smoothie on me. It was all over my car. And then my story was about wrestling with the fact that I'm walking through the hospital door. Someone's facing significant surgery. And all my mind is thinking about are the fact that ants are going to be in my car because of the blueberry smoothie. And I'm like, who does? They need a pastor, not this guy stuck in blueberry world. But then I get to the person, I see their face, I hold their hands, and I start to pray. And something happens. And Jeff, I think you know about this, where you just enter into the space you've been called and something more shows up, even if that wasn't where your mind was or you were totally distracted. And I offered a very heartfelt prayer. Honestly, we were in the moment together. And then he said goodbye, because off to surgery, they're whisked away. And I just remember thinking, gosh, I feel so helpless. The song. To make a difference, helpless to keep the day going like I want. The blueberry smoothies all over the place. But there are a few things I can control. I can drive the car, even if it's a mess, and I can offer my prayer, even if it's imperfect, and I can trust there is a help amid the helplessness. And it's moments like that, where it's a blueberry smoothie, it's a headache, but they always, if I just press into it and start typing about it, I discover, that was a story about grace, and I'm grateful. And I wouldn't discover it without trying to tell it, is the point, maybe. Yeah. Oh,
interesting. That's cool. And I don't want to be irreverent, but what did you do with the blueberry smoothie? How'd you get it out?
Our youngest was about 2 at the time. So, our car, we rolled with baby wipes everywhere. And I was like, thank goodness for the grace of baby wipes in my back seat, because guess what we're going to do now? Use them to clean up the blueberry smoothie.
I've cleaned up a bunch of stuff in my car as well, baby wipes, not blueberry smoothie.
Anyway.
Well, what a great story. All right. One of the things we try to do in this podcast is we talk about the theme of the sermon from the previous Sunday.
Okay.
Reverend Dr. Scott Weimer, who you know,
Yes.
a former senior pastor at Claremont, actually.
That's right.
Gave the sermon, and it was a fantastic, passionately delivered sermon about
As
fellowship.
only Scott does.
He brought the heat.
I
And
bet.
so he's talking about fellowship, the importance of community.
Mm,
And we talked about, a little bit about the epidemic of loneliness that we're
yeah.
experiencing in our culture. I would ask you, why do you think loneliness is such a problem in our world today?
Mm. There, in some ways, I get the place I go is when I experience togetherness, and there are these spaces where you laugh with another person or even cry with another person, and those can both be vulnerable in their own ways, or you share a meal in a sense of, it doesn't always happen this way, but a sense of timelessness happens, or time almost expands. You lose track of because it's just kind of unfolding in this wonderful way, the back and forth, the serious and the light and the funny. And you finish a space like that, and you recognize how full you feel on multiple levels. It's like, whoa, I didn't even know I needed or wanted that. And it's just like, oh gosh, and I think that's where I go, because the opposite of that is, it's to my mind, it's just as debilitating as um, trying to live without a limb or something. It's exhausting trying to figure your way out, and it's only when you sort of discover, like, okay, it's not going to be all these 14 remedies that marketing's trying to sell to me, but when I finally experience a genuine laugh or tear or connection with another, that I'm like, I've been walking around without a limb, and this is the fill.
Mm.
Yeah.
What are some, for people that are experiencing, well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
I think one of the things about loneliness is it kind of collapses in on itself. Like, if
Yes.
I feel lonely, I tend to retreat into my loneliness.
Yes.
How can my myself, how can we help people get unfold out of their loneliness and open up to community and genuine fellowship and relationships?
Yes. At a fundamental level, every human relationship of any significance involves vulnerability. And so there's no getting around. There is an initial step that's like, I'm going to go through this door. Three things come to mind. One is an initial place of connection, truly may not be without humans, but connection that starts to change us, is getting outdoors. With local clients, I coach on hiking trails because I just realized, oh my gosh, we just need to be grounded, literally, and feel the connectiveness of creation all around us.
Mm-hmm.
And I've come to believe that the connectedness of creation itself communicates to us.
So you'll go on a walk with folks.
Yeah. And it's awesome. It's awesome for what it does for these people getting outside of their office environments. But again, I think the connectiveness of creation itself is communicating and even healing. Wow. And I've just seen it too often I just know. We have young kids at home. They continue to challenge us to be better at connecting, because they will just roll out into any playground or restaurant or whatever and just start.
How old are they now?
4 and 8.
4 and 8. Okay.
Especially the 4-year-old now, their children, to my mind, are like prophets for our age in terms of showing the way forward on the connection front. Honestly, I learn more from how they navigate the world, especially when our 8-year-old, which is a little younger, it's probably changing now, and our 4-year-old. And then the last thing comes to mind, I'm thinking of a client I work with on Zoom, and yeah, this was the presenting issue. She just was like, doing well, an executive in a big corporation, but the pandemic had sort of closed everything off, and everything had remained closed until a few months ago. And it was literally the coaching process has been about helping listen for invitations to take a risk and discover what's there. And in this case, the Daughters of American Revolution, which she has a connection to, offered her an invite. And so we just like, that sounds like the one that's at hand. And what I usually tell folks is, look, clarity is not the requirement. Clarity is the reward. You don't get clarity about how this is going to work out ahead of time. Clarity is the reward for stepping into it. So you only learn in action, in this case, in action towards community. So a few different riffs there, but a significant question.
Yeah. What, sometimes I think, like, remember, like, doing young adult ministry, I remember we were trying to train folks how to be greeters, at the church. And we had a bunch of folks who struggled socially, shall we say. And, the first question people always asked was, what do you do for a job? What do you do for work? And during the 2008 financial crisis, that was a real troubling question to ask people, because a lot of people were really embarrassed that they didn't work. They didn't have a job.
Yeah.
And I think, like, a lot of folks feel socially awkward in trying to meet other people because they don't concretely know what to say, what to do, what to ask. What are some concrete pieces of advice you can give us about being in conversation with people?
Oh, I love that. I think about this a lot, especially since making this career shift, where I find myself constantly in what would be called networking spaces full of strangers. And, networking 101, which is really relationship building 101, which is really community building 101, is be interested, not interesting.
Yep.
The best thing in your arsenal of connection are questions. And the better questions, what do you do, right? The better questions, I think, invite people into different spaces. And a couple favorites, I'll just offer this or this. What's a win you've had recently? What's a win you've had in the last week? I like that one because it invites people to think in terms of gratitude. They don't know that word. It's easy to go to the negative, all the busyness, I'm overwhelmed, this isn't working. It invites people into the gratitude space, and it actually shifts the brain chemistry into a more positive, open place. They actually start to appreciate you because you've asked them about their win. Oh, yeah, okay. And the other one, which is not dissimilar, is like, what's one of the more exciting things you're working on right now? And again, you've asked them a question about that's invited a sense of hopefulness, a posture of hopefulness. And again, both of those are just great brain and heart spaces that people don't get invited into often, don't take much, but they just open up differently. And guess what? They feel you differently because you asked that kind of question.
I love it. Do you miss the working in the church personally?
I don't miss, I'll say, the week to week rhythm of some of the work. I mean, there's a lot of administration and just kind of holding the pieces together and making sure it's coming together. And I loved it for the time and for what it is, but I honestly don't miss that. I miss the people. Really, the church has, for all the ways it gets painted with a broad brushstroke in society at large, I have found my experience of the Presbyterian Church, salt of the earth people, left and right, just doing all the things, being all the things you would hope for the world. And you're just like, it can just bowl you over when you just see what people are up to behind the scenes. You're just like, gosh, that's awesome. And it's an honor when you get to like do their wedding or honestly their memorial service. Yeah. It's a profound honor. So I miss that kind of stuff, those relational pieces. But I'm really loving, for all the terrifying aspects, the adventure of in some ways following Jesus's words, follow me. Mm-hmm. In some ways in a deeper level than I've ever done in this season, which again isn't inside the walls of the church, but I'm excited. It's like kind of Luke 10. Don't pack much, man. Just trust.
Yeah, you are stepping out in faith, man. Like, what like, who did you rely on as you made this transition? Like, who did you turn to for advice and for encouragement?
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. You know, one of the things I always thought of in Atlanta, in Richmond, and in Georgetown, Texas, so in ministry, I was always seeking out at least one or two people I considered mentors. Just kind of
Yep.
would find a way to eventually kind of be setting up a monthly or bi-monthly coffee with people I trusted. And so it was nice that after years of ministry, I had a handful of kind of mentors I could call up and be like, this is this is kind of raised up for me, because the two presenting issues, my mom died of cancer right before the pandemic, and then the pandemic itself kind of asked those real big questions about what am I doing on this in this world right now, and no day's guaranteed.
Right.
So some mentors, I did get a spiritual director, and if you can find a good one, gosh, what wisdom and grounding, people that are just really attentive to the Holy Spirit inspired soul and help you hear that. And I did myself also had a coach. And for a while, all those pieces, you know, along with some friends and mentors, so community, as you're hearing, helped me reframe how I approach the pastorate. For a while, I just showed up differently as a pastor. Because if I'm honest, a little of me got lost in the robe. I became more, not always, but the robe, the position, the proper way. And I needed to find Bobby again. I needed to get back, and I was great. For a while, I redefined myself as a pastor, and that was freeing. And then eventually, just like, you know what, this is more. This is actually a call into something else. So
Yes. Is it, what has been the surprise as you made this transition? What has surprised you? Maybe everything.
that, no, one, let me point out, that is also one of my favorite questions to ask people. I ask, what's a win? What's something exciting? Surprise is a great question to ask for people, because it invites that same sensibility of listening to their life a little more attentively. So kudos.
Thank you.
And I think the surprise is that no matter what I thought I was going to do initially, there was no way I could truly predict where I'd be a year plus out. There's just that's one of the two surprises. So I kind of thought maybe I would do a lot of keynote speaking. Bobby, you're a good preacher. You'll be a great speaker, and help people think about leadership and people first leadership. What's it like to really care for your people? And I do. That's what I talk about. But guess what? When nobody knows you, no one's ever heard of you. No one, even the people that don't pay for speakers, really aren't interested at first. And you're like, well, shoot. And so I learned, wow, okay, I'm gonna have to discover what and then I discover the way into the call is gonna be back to this theme, community. Most important thing I've done is joined a speaking association, a Toastmasters, and a little entrepreneurial group that meets every Wednesday, and we workshop and we mastermind together, and we're in the same stage and phase of life and career. And they are the people, all those little buckets of people that have said, hey, I think there's a gig that you'd be great for. Let me connect you to the person who's pulling it together, and I bet you could maybe speak there. I think I know someone who might vibe with what you're doing on the coaching front. Let me get you this conversation. That is how it has unfolded. But that takes time, right? I just need to lean into community and just try to serve and help others. And along the way, that community has served me.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can imagine it's kind of a terrifying transition.
Yeah, one of the stories that's not in my book because it happened after was like we were pulling our 4-year-old was jumping in muddy ice in Cincinnati, Ohio over Christmas, kind of where I grew up, and he's jumping in a muddy ice hole, and he gets stuck. His feet get stuck, and so we pull him out of this muddy Cincinnati 30-degree icy mud, and I'm like, this is actually the experience of stepping from ministry into entrepreneurship. You're like ready to do the journey, the adventure, and you're like, I'm stuck in the mud. I am stuck in the mud. And it's good because we know the mud is actually where the nourishment is. The darkness is where the light comes. So it's actually good, but it's not easy. It's more like walking through muddy puddles and discovering what the soil's about and trusting the timing. Yeah.
Oh man, well, you're an inspiration, man. And if folks are interested, you're available.
Yeah.
Where can people follow you, reach out to you, find you?
Really, all of my stuff is on my website, BHL, my initials, BHL.coach.
Oh, really?
Right. And so you can find there some of the individual and team coaching I do, the book, Small Stories About Big Things, details there. Actually hits Amazon September 30th. Slight shift, but September 30th. And you can, I publish small stories about big things every week on Substack, but even you can find the Substack through that website. So
Okay,
yeah.
cool. And are you still posting on Instagram?
That's true. Yep. And again, you can find the Instagram link through that website, bhl.coach. And I post pretty regularly on LinkedIn. Actually, it's become probably my biggest one.
Yeah.
Just because of the world I'm in.
Wild how LinkedIn is just.
I remember joining LinkedIn in Claremont and being like, what is this? Sure, I'll sign up, but never didn't touch it for like 12 years.
And now it's like your bread and butter.
That's like
Now, what before we conclude, one of the questions we like to ask folks, what are you reading, watching, that you want to let us know about that you're enjoying, pop culture wise?
Pop culture wise. Gosh, I honestly haven't seen anything recently that's just sticking with me. I was a massive fan of the whole, Ted Lasso thing that's been a couple of years, but that was that was really cool. The Kingdom of Heaven Grocery Store is a novel by James McBride that is incredible.
Really? And what's it called again? The Kingdom of Heaven
Grocery Store.
Oh.
And yeah, it's to my mind just revelatory, and just how it reads, and yeah, hard to go into that. That's a recent one I've read. I feel like I'm reading a million things that can't off the top of my head come up with one beyond that fiction novel. I got to ask you, you're the host, I get it. What is one thing that is most exciting for you to be working on right now?
I didn't expect you to ask me a question.
I know, but
I'm reading a great book called 60 Songs That Explain the 90s, which has been really fun. It's really well written, really funny, but it's taking me back down memory lane about the 90s and all this music that was really influential to me, that's kind of nostalgic, but it's also, I've learned a ton of stuff, stories I didn't even know. So it's been really really entertaining.
I am intrigued. That's also my era. So yeah, I may go have to check
it's good.
that out.
It reads quick too. So
good.
All right, Bobby. Well, it's been so good to catch up. People can check him out on his website. Thank you so much. I'm praying for you and hope to see you again soon.
Awesome, Jeff. Thanks. This is fun.
Thanks, Bobby.